We all got in a bus to go to the Beirut International Airport, and we were passing some areas that had snipers. So at some point, the bus driver would tell us, get on the ground, get on the floor of the bus so that you don't get hit by snipers. And then that's how we got to the airport, basically.
We love the San Gabriel Valley. There are some amazing people and businesses here, and we think they deserve the spotlight. Welcome to the SGV Master Key Podcast. We'll have on the people that make the SGV great. We'll find out what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their history, and we're going to have fun doing it. This is the SGV Master Key Podcast. And now your hosts, Scott Warmoth and Russell Mano.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are a regular here, thanks for coming back. If you are new, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley, and we're glad to bring you another special guest here today. Scott, last time we talked about how every guest leads to a new guest, and this is another one like that, right? And I believe the guest that had led to our guest today is someone that you knew, and I also knew, right? Laura Arslanian, who is a realtor in Pasadena, but I believe also she was helping you with real estate at one point. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, her and her late partner, Boyd Smith, was his name. Yeah, helped me out, worked with me on some things in Pasadena in the past.
Normally when people come as a potential guest and they're a realtor or in the real estate business, my instant inclination is to decline because that is the most requested, guest we have, right? That they're real estate agents. But today's guest was referred not because of that, but because they were a friend of Laura's, and she said you have to get her on because she has some amazing stories. So I'm excited to get into that. I don't mean to hype you up too much before we get into that, but before we do, just a reminder: we've partnered with San Gabriel Valley Now, your source for city news, announcements, events, special savings, and everything SGV. Check them out on Instagram, sgv.now, and read their new SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. That's a lot to live up to, so I hope that you can. But I am excited. I don't mean to do that to you, but let's get right into our guest. Her name is Aida Dimejian. She's the owner and founder of Berkshire Hathaway Golden Properties. Aida, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome.
So I already revealed that you are involved in real estate, right?
Yes,
but
I am.
Of course, a person is so much more than just that. So we normally start off the show with, what is your connection with the San Gabriel Valley?
Well, I came to the United States when I was 12 years old, and I landed in Pasadena because my late aunt used to live here. And when I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon, and when the civil war in Beirut started, after 2 years of being in the war, we immigrated to the United States and came to Pasadena. So I have lived in the San Gabriel Valley since then.
2 years of being in the war.
Yes.
What is that? What is that like?
I have images of bullets flying, bombs falling, dead bodies on the streets, and I experienced that as a young girl for 2 years. As a matter of fact, I remember a scene where I was sleeping in my bedroom, and I had gotten up to go to the restroom, and when I came, there was a bullet in my mattress that had flown in from outside. So, yeah.
Oh, geez. So the insecurity of living in those conditions must be astounding.
Yes. I mean, I don't think about it anymore because I think I have suppressed that memory. But, as a little girl growing up, I didn't see the worst of the war. Thank God my family got us out in 1976. But after that, it was more horrific.
And you must have friends and relatives that were affected later.
Yes, at the time. Not anymore. I think majority of the Armenian population now has immigrated to mostly to the United States and elsewhere in the world.
Where else in the world, I'm curious, would have large Armenian populations that have come from Beirut or from Armenia?
I would say Canada would be another country that has a good amount of Armenians who have immigrated. Recently, a lot of Armenians from the Syrian war have immigrated to Canada. The Canadian government welcomes the refugees and takes care of them until they can get up on their feet. And
are you seeing them going to preferred cities in Canada?
Well, Montreal to be probably, because they tend to go to highly populated Armenian towns more than anything, because they find the resources and the support there.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what life was like in Beirut before the war?
I have lots of happy memories. My father gave us a lot of good memories. We used to go to, a lot of weekend outings with them. And, I have memories of my school, my friends there, me walking to school every day. But the 2 years of being in the war and then coming here, I just kind of have just left all of that behind. I don't think about it often.
Mm. For 10, you were 10 at the time, right? When the war started.
When the war started in 1974, yeah.
So 2 years to living in a war-torn country. Wow. And now I see it happening on TV, right? And I can't imagine what these families are going through. Right. This episode is starting out similarly to the last one, where I'm just hit with this revelation that people and families have gone through just these tremendous things that I have not gone through, and I can't imagine what that must be like.
Yeah, I mean, growing up here after I immigrated here and getting to know friends, making friends, it's amazing how you see, we take a lot of things for granted here. The simplest thing we take for granted.
So you came at age 12.
Yes.
And at age 12, were you able to adapt to the new country quite well?
It was tough in the beginning. Teenagers are not nice to each other. So I did have a lot of issues in the Pasadena school district. But I did have a friend. My parents had a friend who had a daughter who basically assigned her to me to be kind of my mentor and shadow, to kind of get me acclimated to the school system and so on. But, it wasn't easy because I didn't know the language. My education in Lebanon was Armenian, Arabic, and English. However, the English was not a conversational English. It was just, this is a chair, this is a door, this is a dog, this is a cat. So when we came, I didn't know, how to articulate. And then, of course, I had a heavy accent back then. So I was made fun of, a lot.
But you were able to come into an Armenian community.
Yes, but when we came in 76, there weren't a lot of Armenians in Pasadena. Majority of the immigrants came in the 80s. So 76, there were some Armenians who were here from the 50s and the 60s as well. But in 76, it was just very few families.
What high school in Pasadena did you go to?
I went to Pasadena High School. Well, I went to Muir Elementary and then Pasadena High School. I mean, not Muir, I'm sorry, John Elliott.
Okay. Yeah. And what was the demographics of Pasadena High School then?
Just not a lot of foreigners, I can say.
Really?
Yeah, just a few.
So I think that was a similar experience for Laura as well. And certainly a lot of our guests who are immigrants to the San Gabriel Valley, that they've experienced some of that. When did that start to change for you, or had it changed? Like people viewing you as a outsider, or this immigrant who doesn't speak the language?
I would say, it didn't take me long to get into some advanced classes and master my English. And, I was, after a year or two, I was right along with everybody else and taking AP classes and all of that. So I would say probably once I got into college, that's when it started kind of changing.
Did your whole family come together?
Yes. So my mother's side of the family, there was about 3 or 4 of us, 3 or 4 families. And I do remember that vividly because we all got in a bus to go to the Beirut International Airport, and we were passing some areas that had snipers. So at some point, the bus driver would tell us, get on the ground, get on the floor of the bus so that you don't get hit by snipers. And then that's how we got to the airport, basically. So it was our family, my aunt, my uncle, and my grandparents.
Well, so I don't know anything about the Civil War there, but so civilians were just being attacked by other...
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time. It happens now, too.
Now?
Yes. Innocent civilians are shot at all the time.
In Lebanon and...
Not just in Lebanon, but in probably in Syria and Palestine and maybe some other countries.
Ukraine,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, they target civilians. I mean, it was a civil war.
Yeah.
So, it was family against family.
When you say Civil War, so in my mind, like when you say war, I have in my mind an armed army, with uniform. And when you say civil, are these just the people like fighting amongst each other, or
different factions just fighting against each other for different ideologies? Yes, some Christian and Muslims as well, but basically different factions just fighting with each other.
And they're not all necessarily armed groups, are they? I mean, you would have factions, but there would be individuals fighting individuals.
It could be,
Because
yes.
they didn't think the same way.
Exactly. Lebanon is a very complicated country to this day.
Well, the whole background of Beirut and Lebanon is a whole story in itself,
Right.
like you say, and how it was formed and all the different... Well, I think this is true throughout the Mideast.
Right.
Just the complications there and different religions and different cultures, different communities.
Well, I'm Armenian. So because of the Armenian genocide by Turkey in 1915, majority of the Armenians who were marched out of Armenia through the deserts of Deir Zor first landed in the country of Syria. Syria was one of the first countries who accepted the Armenian refugees back then, and then later Lebanon. So that's where a lot of the Armenians are concentrated, the Armenians outside of Armenia.
Right. And I'm only privy to a lot of this Armenian history because of the friends that I have and people who have been on this show. But the history of the Armenians is very complex, right? Depending on where you start and where they came from, right? Iran, Russian Armenian. Teddy is Russian Armenian. Narbe is Iranian Armenian.
Is Persian Armenian, yeah. That's a famous, that's a very popular Persian Armenian name.
So a common thing amongst in the show here and among the people in the San Gabriel Valley that I'm interested in is like, where do you see yourself culturally? Like, have you adopted American culture? Do you retain your Armenian culture? What does that look like for you?
It's very interesting because from early age, my parents made sure that I retained my Armenian culture because I was going to public school, because there were Armenian schools here too, but at the time my parents could not afford private schools, so they put me in, public schools. But they made sure that I belonged to the Armenian youth organizations, and I was active in the Armenian community. And then later on, when I was 18, I became very involved with the Armenian National Committee, which is the largest Armenian political organization that advocates for the Armenian communities here and in Armenia and in Artsakh.
What do they do?
We are a political organization, so we advocate our elected officials for aid to Armenia, for the recognition of the Armenian genocide, which happened a few years ago, finally in the United States. So we advocate for our communities here and in Armenia and in Artsakh.
I see. What just came to mind is I think it's a high school by Pasadena. It's called AGBU.
Right.
That's an Armenian school,
That's an Armenian school. And then there's an Armenian preschool in Pasadena as well, Tavlian Armenian Preschool.
Have you ever heard of that, Scott, AGBU?
No, I haven't.
And have you ever heard of a high school being an ethnic high school?
I was in Beverly Hills last night, and I saw like a Jewish high school.
Oh, I've heard of this before, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But that's not the only high school. By the way, the AGBU school just recently closed, but we have an Armenian school in Montebello, We have one in Hollywood. We have one in the valley. We have actually a couple in the valley, and we have one in La Crescenta, Shamlian Armenian School.
Why did the local one close? Just not enough students, huh?
I don't think it was a student factor, but it had to do something. It was an internal issue. I'm not involved with the AGBU sector, so I wasn't privy to why that school closed down. But we were sorry to see it go.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting that you would have a cultural like high school. What do you think is the purpose of that?
The purpose of it is because of the genocide, because Armenians, the diasporan Armenians were driven out of their homeland, in 1915. So we landed in other countries other than Armenia. So for us to keep our culture and language is very, very important. So that drove us to establish schools wherever we were, not just in the United States, but in Canada we have schools. We have schools all over the world.
Well, there are probably more Armenians outside Armenia than inside. Is that right?
I would say more or less. Yeah. More or less.
Yeah, I think there's a few countries like that where you would see more or, a similar number of that nationality outside the country. Obviously Israel is like that with Jews. You see more outside. There's the biggest Jewish city in the world being New York, probably,
right.
And the biggest Armenian city in the world could be Glendale, I suppose Armenia has large cities.
Armenia is still the biggest.
But Glendale is the biggest in the U.S., I believe.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, right. Pasadena, Glendale area is a huge...
Pasadena, Glendale, La Crescenta.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess if you're from the San Gabriel Valley, you already sort of know that, right? That the Glendale is a big concentration.
Well, what I didn't know until I moved here was Pasadena was so big, and also Fresno.
Fresno has one of the earliest Armenian settlers.
Right.
Yeah.
We learned that from Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a huge community there. We have a lot of farmers, that basically keep the economy alive in Fresno. So a lot of Armenians went into the agricultural business when they came.
We sort of shifted topics to talking about Armenians, and the show is really about you. I'm interested in these things, but when you say Armenian and when I say Armenian, I think maybe they mean different things. I don't know. But I know that Armenians encompass a lot of different cultures, right? Don't they? Because we were saying that they come from different backgrounds and whatnot. So what does it mean for you to be Armenian?
Well, even though we were born and raised in different countries, again, our Armenian identity is the same. Again, that all stems from our history and what we have gone through as a nation and the genocide. So being Armenian is, staying true to my roots, staying true to my culture, staying true to my language. I speak, English fluently, as you can tell, but we speak Armenian at home. My kids went to Armenian private schools from kindergarten to high school. So to me, I have friends Armenians from Iran, Armenians from Armenia. Culturally, it's funny. We are different because we are, raised in different countries. So we kind of assimilate into that country's culture a little bit, but we still have our Armenian roots and Armenian traditions and so on.
And I'm sorry, I'm just still curious about this thing. Okay. So I can look at an Asian and be like, okay, I think that they're from this country, right? But can you, as an Armenian, determine from their name or look or dress where they're from? Very easily.
Yeah, very easily. Persian Armenians are, you can differentiate because they're like Persians. Okay, their accent is different, and their some of their tendencies and some of their traditions are different. Outside of the Armenian ones, they have also Persian traditions. Like we have Lebanese traditions, and then we have Armenians from Armenia, who are totally different because a lot of them were under the Soviet influence for 70 plus years. And, because of the communist influence, they were raised different. They're different. But we're all Armenians.
Yeah.
So let's get back to your story. So you learn English really quickly, right? And then where did your path go from after high school?
So I wanted to be a nurse from a very young age. And I told my parents, I want to be a nurse. I like the medical field a lot. I didn't want to be a doctor, but I wanted to be a nurse. So I went to Cal State LA and got my bachelor's degree in nursing. But while I was going to school, I worked at Huntington Hospital. I started in nursery, nursery and maternity, and then labor and delivery. So I got my bachelor's degree and my RN license, and I went and I started working at Huntington Hospital in labor and delivery, the graveyard shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Oh, what was that like? Because that's like basically helping mothers deliver?
Yes, basically.
Okay.
I mean, maternity or labor and delivery nurses do everything until the very end, and then the doctors come and get the baby out. That's it.
And get all the credit.
And all the credit and all the money.
Wow. Okay. Would that be equivalent to what like a midwife is?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So what was that like? Did you enjoy that or?
I really did. I really did enjoy it. But the night shift was very difficult. I mean, as a brand new graduate, you get not the so desirable, hours. So, but it was difficult, and I had 2 children at the time. So
you had 2 children.
Yes. I have a son and a daughter. So while I was working graveyard shift, I had a full-time nanny at the house because my husband worked. So when I come home in the morning, I had to sleep to get ready for that day's night shift.
Wow. I'm curious, do you have a rough estimate of how many babies you helped deliver?
Oh gosh, no, I haven't counted, but
hundreds,
quite a few.
So this is just my own curiosity, right? So it's my understanding that I'll say Western delivery of babies is portrayed as something very painful and scary, and that so many women like they view it on movies and TV and they think that this is how it has to be. And then when I learned that there was this other completely different way of people delivering, that sometimes mothers have a very natural and almost pain-free birth. And,
yes.
And there are 2 very different views on it. And the majority of the world doesn't view it as a medical procedure. It's just a natural thing. But here we do. And I'm just curious on your, because you've seen some.
Here is totally a medical procedure. I mean, there are some women who do it outside of the regular standard, hospital birth. But I have been away from that field for 30 years now. So I'm sure there are some new ways of delivering now, and I've seen underwater deliveries and so on. But what I would say is, just get your epidural and you won't feel a thing.
So obviously you've taken a different path from there. Where did you diverge from the nursing?
Well, after 3 years of night shift at Huntington Hospital, my husband in 1987, actually my husband is the founder of our real estate organization. He went to school, same Cal State LA. He graduated in business, and he got his broker's license in 1985. And Armenians culturally, we like to be our own boss. We like to own our own business. We're entrepreneurs. It's in our DNA. So he wanted to open up his own real estate office. So he started with mortgage and then real estate in 1987. We had a Century 21 office for 30 years until we switched over to Berkshire Hathaway. So in 1992, when hospitals were cutting back hours and it was just not a good environment. It's not like today where nurses are very much in demand. But back then there was a period when they were cutting hours, and it was just very hard, especially the graveyard shift was very hard on my body. So he said, why don't you get your real estate license and come and join me? And I did, and I left nursing, and I haven't looked back, and I haven't taken a single business course in my entire education. It was all medical related, chemistry, physics, all of that.
Wow. You sort of skipped over your husband. So where did you meet your husband?
Oh gosh, I met him at the Pasadena Armenian Center. I was 18.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I took him to my high school prom. And I'm still married to him.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So there's another unique theme or not unique theme, but similar theme from the previous guest who is very successful and took a very different path there, right? So you're starting into real estate, and what is it? Do you enjoy it right away? Are you liking it? How's that journey?
Oh gosh, I don't think my personality in the beginning was cut out for real estate. I didn't take rejection very kindly, so I cried a lot in the beginning.
Oh,
but again, I'm very resilient. I bounce back very easily. So a few years later, it was fine. I learned the craft, and I'm a people's person, so it's not hard for me to become friends with some perfect stranger. So that part of my personality helped, and I think part of my personality of being a nurse, the caring, taking care of, that also helped for me to become successful in real estate.
So at that time you were working with your husband?
Yes.
And doing the same activities, or did you kind of assign different work to different?
No, I started as selling properties, listing, and
he was doing the same?
He was doing the same. We had an office manager at that time. And then as 2-3 years into my career, I got very involved in organized real estate, because that part was ingrained in me since a very young age. Because, as I said, at age of 18, I was very active in the Armenian National Committee and so on. So I was, giving back, civic duties was ingrained in me. So I got very involved in organized real estate. I became the president of the Pasadena Foothills Association in 2002. I think I was probably the youngest at the time. Yeah.
Well, you've been in this place, in this business for a long time.
Yes.
Actually, more than 30.
30 years.
Yeah,
31 years, yeah.
So how big is your organization now, your own company?
We have 2 offices. We have our Pasadena office, and we have our Sierra Madre office. In our Pasadena office, we have about 65 agents, and in our Sierra Madre office, we have about 35 agents there. I also have a escrow company in Arcadia, and we still have our mortgage company.
What's the name of your escrow company?
Contempo Escrow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Huntington Drive in Arcadia.
Yeah, so you've had to start to manage a lot of business. And are you still out there selling, or are you managing?
No, I purely manage now, unless I have a very close friend who comes and says, can you help me buy or sell, which has happened. I do maybe 1 or 2 transactions a year, but I mainly manage, train my agents. I train a lot of brand new agents, and I like it.
You like training them?
I like training brand new agents, yes.
What do you like about it?
Because they're brand new, they don't know the industry, they don't know the business, and they're like sponges. They want, they want to absorb every single information and technique you give them. And some will make it, some will not, because not everybody's cut out to be in sales.
Well, Aida, we ask everybody to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about this, what can I bring with me? But this is actually, again, it goes back to my Armenian roots, and my entire life has been devoted to activism for the recognition of the Armenian genocide and so on. But this is a rock from Mount Ararat.
Wow.
Everybody knows Mount Ararat. Yeah. It's where Noah's Ark landed. Mount Ararat belongs to Armenia. So, but unfortunately, after the genocide, the map was redrawn, and now it belongs to the Turkish side. So my cousin was going to climb Mount Ararat, and I said, "Can you just bring me a piece of rock from there?" And she did, and I have this displayed in my living room. And I look at it once in a while, and it's an eerie feeling. First time I went to Armenia, as you land at the airport, you see Mount Ararat right in front of you. And Mount Ararat has been a symbol of Armenianism, basically, just like the pomegranate is. So, but unfortunately, I was going to climb Mount Ararat 3 years ago. I was training for it. And the pandemic hit, and the trip was canceled. And at this point, I don't think I will pursue it. But I still I have a piece of rock from there. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Where on the mountain is it from? Do you know? Is it high level?
They were almost to the peak. They couldn't make it all the way to the peak, but they were almost there, because as you get to that elevation, Mount Ararat is about almost 17,000
Oh my gosh.
feet. Yeah.
That's high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be one of the tallest,
Yeah,
highest in the world.
it's pretty tall. So when you get to the peak, the weather gets very treacherous. So there's high winds and snow and so on. So they were almost there. So just a few yards below the peak.
I never knew that it was Armenian territory initially.
Yes.
I knew that it was under Turkish control now. Mm-hmm. Did you know the town that there's a museum there dedicated to Noah's Ark, and the town is actually, I think in Turkish, is called the Valley of the Eight. Did you know that?
And what are the 8?
Noah, his wife, and their 3 sons, and their wife. The town is actually called that, but this is from long ago, and maybe that's whether or not that is actually related to that story. It's just interesting. What is also interesting are the anchor stones. Have you heard of those?
Mm-mm.
So anchor stones are stones with a hole in them that are put on the sides of ships or vessels, right, to keep them stable in storm, right? They're not meant to go to the floor, but they're meant to stabilize a ship. And Ararat is, I think, now over 200 miles from a coast. But these anchor stones are found there in that area, but they are massive. I mean, when you stand next to them, they're over 6 foot tall. So it had to be on an enormous ship to even exist. But what are they doing 200 miles from the coast?
Oh.
Well, if I can ask you a question, how would you know that information? I didn't know that.
I enjoy biblical history.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, Ron Wyatt was an explorer looking for the Ark, and there's a lot of information about that area. I didn't know about it previously being Armenian territory, but I knew a lot about that area.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe those anchor stones are still there because they're enormous. But just the fact that they exist, and to put a hole in a rock is not easy without tooling, right?
Right.
But these are they're the size of the door, and there are multiple ones out there.
I have to look it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, new information.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We're going to get more into your story, but before that, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Wormuth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back. Before we get more into your story, we do a little segment here where we read 2 questions from this card game. It's called Like You cards, and they're just engaging questions. They're nothing very penetrating, but it's a little fun segment we have. So you can choose to answer one, both, or none of the questions. So here we go. First question is, what fast food restaurant has the best French fries? And the second question is, have you ever been arrested?
Well, let's start with the second question,
Okay.
and that is no.
Okay.
What fast food? Wow, I've struggled with my weight all of my life, so I try not to eat French fries. But I do have to say that last time I had McDonald's, they had pretty good French fries.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't eat fast food often. Probably I had McDonald's maybe 10, 15 years ago. Could be, but I just had the French fries. I didn't have anything else.
They used to fry them in beef tallow, and then they went to vegetable oil, and then the taste changed forever.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I certainly like McDonald's French fries, but I think In-N-Out are the best. I love those. Yeah.
What about when you were arrested?
Oh, when I was arrested, when I was arrested for stealing McDonald's French fries. No, never arrested.
I've also never been arrested. And the fries, I would say McDonald's when they were back then. I don't eat them anymore. But I do like In-N-Out fries. You know, you can get them well done or extra well done. So I get them extra well done. And they're
I didn't know that.
And that's it then, because I don't like soggy fries. So
Yes.
that's probably it.
Okay, yeah. So they'd have a little browning on them?
Depending on the store that you go to, well done is enough. But sometimes if their turnaround is like too quick, then they won't get to it. So I always say extra well done, and then they come out like more crispy.
Oh, wow.
Food-wise, I always like crunch.
Yeah,
So to me,
yeah.
crunch is very important. That's why McDonald's,
Yeah. Could you bring that bag of potato chips over, please?
But actually, I don't think that In-N-Out qualifies as fast food, because have you ever been to In-N-Out recently?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
that's true.
It's like 30
yeah.
minutes or 20,
Yeah.
20 minutes at least for the line. So
Yeah.
anyway, but so before the break, we're talking about, your transition into real estate, and now you're more doing managing and teaching. So what else are you doing with your business and the company? What gets you excited now?
We are going, it's been a little challenging the past few months, our industry, because of interest rates. But I do like the possibility now of a normalized market, if there is such a thing. Because the past 2-3 years were just not a usual real estate market. It was overly inflated. Everybody was outbidding each other, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 over asking price. I mean, if I have a listing and I get 80 offers on one listing, that's just insane.
Wow.
So right now, actually, I am excited, and my husband as well, to the possibility of a market that is more in tune with, our clients. At least we can, represent buyers and hopefully get them into a property without having them being outbid 30, 40 times, literally.
How is the inventory level right now?
Inventory is very low, and that's one of the things where, when interest rates went up, it was the Fed's way of controlling inflation. Everybody thought that the real estate market was going to crash, and every indication from our economists at the California Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors told us that there is no crash in sight. But everybody loves to talk about real estate. Everybody's mother and grandmother is, an expert in real estate. And, people listen to each other and they think that it's going to crash. And that's what makes buyers kind of, step back a little bit and not take action. Go, I think the market is going to crash. But it's not, because of inventory. So the dynamics of home ownership in its entirety have changed. Before, people used to move every 5 to 7 years. Right now, people, if they move, it's 14, 15 years, maybe not even. Nowadays, because of their tax bases, why would they even move? So that's why, people are not selling. They're very comfortable where they're at. And that's our problem with inventory. And of course, we're not building enough,
Right.
because of all the red tape in our local municipalities. So
Yeah. Well, and then a lot of people just don't want to sell because they're going to have to get a new loan at a higher interest rate. It makes no sense.
Exactly the point. Because again, the last 3-4 years, I would say everybody refinanced and they got a very reasonable interest rate. So why would they jeopardize that? What
about the average time to turn a house, to sell? What's that at right now locally?
To tell you honestly, in the Pasadena and the surrounding areas, some houses have been selling very fast with multiple offers even, and over asking, even in this market. But right now, the average is about 2 months, give or take.
Well, that's pretty fast.
That's not bad at all, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you are training new agents now, right? And how is it for these agents coming into a market like this? It's got to be very tough.
Very, very tough. Right now, it's very tough. I mean, the last 3-4 years, whoever got into the business the last 3-4 years, they did okay. But again, they were not in a norm real estate market for them to learn the business the right way, because you didn't even have to put anything in. I mean, before you even put it into multiple listing services, you already sold the property. So the agent didn't do all of the steps that you needed to sell a property. Nowadays, when you get into the business right now, it's extremely tough because, again, people are waiting, they're not buying. A lot of people have been priced out of the market because of the interest rates and the fact that there's really not much inventory out there.
Are you seeing fewer potential agents now?
The new licensees, they're still, I haven't seen the latest numbers from the Department of Real Estate, but there's still a lot of people who apply to get their license. However, I would say from last 2 months to maybe another 4 or 5 months, we will see a lot of exodus from the business itself, because a lot of people, because this is an independent contractor business. Unless you sell a house, you don't get a paycheck. So a lot of people will not be able to sustain themselves, and they will leave the industry and then, go to a regular 9-to-5 job.
And this is a typical cycle.
Yeah.
As far as that goes.
Well, we saw that in 2008.
Yeah.
A different market, different crash,
right.
But we saw a lot of exodus then.
Yeah.
Well, it's clear that you're very knowledgeable about this subject, and I don't doubt that your clients and the people that have done business with you understand that. I want to give you an opportunity to speak about something that you said that you were passionate about. I forget how you phrased it, but it was about the Armenian genocide, right? Mm-hmm. Why is this a passion for you, and what is the message that you want for people to know about it? My family's history, going to my grandparents, they were very involved in the Armenian cause. Again, after the genocide and after going to our kind of adopted countries like Lebanon and Syria, my family and my grandparents started their activism, at a very young age, and then that passed on to my parents and then to us. To me, whenever there's injustice, it affects me greatly, and not just the Armenian injustice, but overall world, injustice towards any culture and any nationality. But mine, I used to listen to my dad sing Armenian songs and cry. So to me, that was instilled in me at a very, very, very young age. So activism to me overall is extremely important. I'm not just active in the Armenian National Committee or towards Armenian, genocide recognitions and all of that, but I'm also very involved in local politics and state politics here in the United States. So, for those who don't know what the Armenian genocide is, what is that?
Well, basically, Turkey, back then the Ottoman Empire, started a systematic ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Armenian people. And actually, the word genocide made it into our vocabulary after the Armenian genocide. Before then, the word genocide did not exist. So because we were Christians and because we lived in the Caucasus in the same area, the Ottoman Empire at that time saw us as a threat and started a systemic extermination of the Armenians. And about 1.5 million or more were slaughtered. And then about the same amount were marched through the deserts of Deir Zor, which is kind of annexed to the Syria, and then they landed in Syria, most of them, all of them. My grandmother has stories basically where the only reason why she survived the march, because she was, her older brother had her on her shoulders during the march, and at one point he got tired and left her by a tree, just left her there. She was, I believe, 2 years old. And, maybe a few minutes later, a family member noticed that my grandmother was not on the shoulder anymore and said, "Where did you leave her?" "I left her by a tree." Well, they went back and got her and,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here now. Stories like that are very common. Stories of families being, separated, and, brothers and sisters not knowing that they existed after, but only found out after 40, 50 years that they have a brother or they have a cousin.
Wow. My only knowledge of the genocide was that they were marched into the desert basically to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that people had survived that.
Yeah, a lot died, but thank God that quite a few survived, and they built a diaspora basically.
Wow. I thought it was like 4 million that had been killed. 4.5 million. I thought that was the number. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the number 1.5 million for sure at the time of the genocide, and then probably another 500,000 or so, through the desert.
And why is there like controversy about whether or not this even happened?
Well, because the Turkish government has not acknowledged that they have perpetrated this act towards the Armenians. They have not accepted it, unlike Germany, who has accepted it and who has made retributions towards, the Jews. But Turks have not done that. So the Turkish government till today does not recognize the Armenian genocide. They have a lot of our lands, our wealth, everything. And right now, similar actions are happening with an enclave of a land that basically has been an indigenous Armenian land for centuries, called Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, and it's right next to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan and Turkey are, very close allies. They're complicit. They're two in one. They're the same. And right now there has been a blockade in Artsakh for 58 years. I think 58 days. I'm sorry, not years. 58 days today. Where they have blocked off the only road that goes in and out of Artsakh, that takes anything everything, food, commercial products, medication. So the people of Artsakh for 58 days have not had anything come in from the outside world. And, it's right now becoming a dire situation. And that's why right now the Armenian National Committee is advocating to our elected officials to stop aid to Azerbaijan, to stop military aid to Azerbaijan, because they are committing a genocide against 120,000 people that are in Artsakh right now.
Wow. I've not heard of this. Have you heard of this, Scott?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I mean, not intimately.
You don't hear it because all our media is basically dominated by what's going on in Ukraine. So, unfortunately, you don't hear these things.
Well, that's a lot heavier than I thought we were going to get into. But it's clear that you have a passion for, getting the word out about your history of your people.
Boy, how easy is it to reconcile within yourself, this grim history and even contemporary actions that are being taken with, running a business and, raising a family. I mean, it must be something that's always a little conflict.
I often think about that. If I wasn't Armenian and if I didn't have this, how would my life have been different? I wouldn't change a thing, by the way. But, my every being, my every decision, my everything that I do on a daily basis, some part of it has to do with the fact that, we have this situation in Armenia, we have this situation in Artsakh, and I have, my duty. So sort of, you're not free, basically. Part of you is just kind of, chained, and it's just not set free. And it's a very, I don't want to get emotional, which I can get emotional very fast, but it's not easy on anyone. So.
Wow. And I would imagine you share a lot of this with your children.
Yes, they know my dedication and my passion. Sometimes they criticize me for it. They think that I'm not living my life fully, and I'm, but that's a choice that I have made. And
How old are your children?
I have a 34-year-old son and a 33-year-old daughter.
Nice. And they're living local?
They are local. They're both, my son lives in Altadena and my daughter lives in Pasadena. And my son works with us now. So he will be the second generation realtor from the family. So,
right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's important, right, that you maintain or you preserve history and culture and all that. And, it's important, the good and the bad, right, that people don't forget. So
definitely. No, I mean, if we don't speak out and if we don't point out and if we don't, bring awareness, the world will not know. And it's not just the Armenian culture, but there are a lot of cultures out there that, go through a lot of these, difficult times. But unfortunately, when you are not in a superpower, people do not know about you.
Well, look how it took 100 years just to get it recognized in the U.S.
Right.
If you didn't keep talking about it, it would never have happened.
Well, again, you would think that consciously we would be on the right side of history, on the right side of humanity. But unfortunately, politics and the fact that we're allies with Turkey and we have air bases there and so on and so forth, all of, our morality basically kind of gets skewed because of politics.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We're going to transition now from this, and it's sort of hard. I've been thinking of what is a meaningful way to transition from something so important to something that's
frivolous.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But we're going to get into some of your favorite things in the San Gabriel Valley.
So, Aida, can we get into talking about some of your favorite places, memorable places, or things to do in the San Gabriel Valley? As I know that as a person in the real estate industry, you're very familiar with lots of places and things that are happening here. Well, what are your three favorite?
As far as places to visit,
to eat, to visit.
Right. Okay. Well, there's a new restaurant. It's not very new, but a couple of years now. It's called Zephyr. It's on Colorado and Sierra Madre, basically. It's a Mediterranean restaurant, and it's owned by our friends, and they're an amazing couple, and she is an amazing cook. So it's like going there and having a home-cooked meal. And it's a reminiscent of my mom's cooking sometimes. So.
Oh, good.
Okay, it's a mysterious-looking place, right?
It is, yes.
What is this place? But I know that they serve food. It's on...
it's near Vaughn's?
It is near Vaughn's.
It is just east of Vaughn's, but right across from the car wash.
Okay. Yes. And it looks like a residential place, right?
I could imagine that at one point it was a residential kind of craftsman-looking house.
Okay.
But it has a side yard and a little bit of a backyard. Most of the seating is outdoors, but the food is just absolutely amazing.
And what kind of food do they serve there?
Mediterranean, Armenian food.
Okay, now I'm interested. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's a great place, and what makes it best is it's like a mom and pop, and it's husband and wife and their son, and so it's like home.
What is the meaning of Zephyr?
I really don't know.
Okay.
It's an Arabic word of some sort. I've forgotten. Okay. Pretty much all of my Arabic, so.
Okay. It's not a hookah lounge, is it?
No,
right.
Because hookah is not allowed in Pasadena, so.
I see. I don't know why for some reason I thought that, but. Okay.
I think a long time ago when the regulations changed, before regulations changed, it used to be a hookah lounge.
Oh, okay.
And a hookah and a sandwich shop. That was like a previous owner, but this is the one that our friends took over 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but right now regulations have changed, ordinances has changed. You can't do hookah.
I see.
What's another place you can think of?
Another place I would say is, besides the regular places like the Rose Bowl and the City Hall and all of that, but Sarkis Pastry. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Sarkis Pastry. No. Russell is laughing.
He's thinking about it.
No, because I just looked up embarrassingly, donuts just this weekend, right? But it came up and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's okay. So
yeah, again, Sarkis Pastry, they're again wonderful mom and pop owners. They're two brothers, basically. They have another place in Glendale, but this one in Pasadena has been there for a long, long time. And it's basically Armenian Middle Eastern pastries. Last weekend we celebrated Saint Sarkis. It's one of the saints. And whoever is named Sarkis, you celebrate their name. And Sarkis is,
Oh, so that's spelled Sarkis.
Exactly.
But yeah,
and then,
I have seen. Where are they located?
They're on Washington Boulevard, across from my third favorite place, Mission Liquor.
Oh yeah.
Mission. Oh, okay. I know where that is.
Mission Wine and Spirits.
Okay.
Again, these are all owned by friends of ours, and the owners of Mission Wine and Spirits have been. Mission has been a staple in Pasadena for a long, long time. His father started the business, and now he's taken over the business. Viken Mankarian is his name. Along with his wife Salpi, and they have 4 daughters. I think the youngest daughter is now going to get into the business, but they now have 5 locations throughout Southern California.
Okay.
So he's done amazing. But
Is that you would go up Allen?
You would go up Allen, and on the corner of Allen and Washington, it's the northwest corner. That was the original store, but then if you make a left on Washington, so he's gone a little bit, just one store in towards Washington, and that's where the store is.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen those.
Yeah.
Is there another one in Sierra Madre, like up north of Baldwin? Is that also called Mission Wine and Liquor?
No, that's a different. That must be a different one.
And you were excited about it because you enjoy drinking?
I'm socially, one or two, every weekend is fine, but I try to stay away from it as much as possible for the calorie reasons, but we enjoy it. My husband goes to Mission Liquor at least every other week and stocks up. We have a lot of entertainment at our house, so we go through alcohol very fast.
Wines?
Why my husband is a big wine drinker. He loves his wine.
I see. So going back to the pastry thing, like I remember there was a Armenian pastry shop in Glendale. I think going south on Verdugo or something right next to Zanku Chicken. There was a pastry shop there.
That's Sarkis Pastry.
Is it?
I think.
Okay. So then you just see them all laid out in the display case.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe that's another. Granted, Glendale, you have a pastry shop like every step. So.
But have you ever been to one of these pastry shops?
Boy, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like the puff pastry with pistachio and maybe it's drizzled with something, but all different shapes and walnut and
right.
No, wow, that's
like variations of paklavas and things like that.
Right,
yeah. But a lot of cakes as well. Sarkis Pastry also does cakes, and you can order your wedding cake from them as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we have to try that sometime. What do you call those pastries or desserts? Is there a name for them?
Everyone has a different name. So, I'm not too big on them because I'm not a dessert person. But you bring me a bag of chips, I can finish it now.
Right.
But
let's have some chips and then I'll have some pastry.
But every pastry has its own name. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Aida, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing, your story with us. I appreciate it. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Thank you for having me, by the way. This has been a great session for me, and I enjoyed sharing all my information. So the best way of getting a hold of me would be my email, and it's aida@bhhsgolden.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have learned that history. I always love history, and history is a really popular thing on the show when we break it up into little short clips. So it's going to be great to share that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We hope you enjoyed that. You can check out our full catalog of episodes on our website, sgvmasterkey.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you again real soon on the next episode.
You've been listening to the SGV Master Key Podcast. Our passion is the small businesses and the people that make up the San Gabriel Valley, and it's our honor to have them on the show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. The show is produced by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the SGV Master Key Podcast.
Mother, no, kind of mother.